All right, everybody. Welcome to AstroTalk and Tea Sagittarius season. My name is Kelsey Bednar, and thanks for joining me. So we have transitioned November 22nd-ish. We transitioned from Scorpio season into Sagittarius season, and this is a huge energetic shift. We're moving from the depths of water to the exciting, party-esque energy of fire. And I think we're going to collectively feel a big shift. Some of you are going to be very relieved that Scorpio season is over. So focusing in on Sag season, what is this all about and what do you need to know in order to navigate the next 3.5 weeks? So first and foremost, Sagittarius season this year will run from November 22nd through December 21st. So right up until just before Christmas time. And what are characteristics of Sagittarius energy? Well, as I just mentioned, Sag is a fire sign, and fire is, they're excitable, they're competitive, they're active, they're boisterous, they're really, really fun. All our fire friends are usually our most fun friends. Sagittarians, they tell great stories or they love to tell jokes, they love mirth and merriment and happiness. Sometimes Sagittarius have the best laughs, or they love to make other people laugh. Like that's something that really fills them up. They're totally that friend who is like buoyant and optimistic and can go really overboard on the joy factor, which, in certain times is really amazing and really needed. Everyone needs that friend who is just totally like life of the party, having so much fun, maybe drinks a little too much, maybe eats a little too much. It's all good. So those are definitely some characteristics of Sag energy. At the end of the day, Sag is connected to the planet Jupiter. So it's really about, being optimistic and believing in oneself. Sages are usually pretty confident. They just have this feeling like, oh yeah, my plans are probably going to work out the way I want them to. And if they don't, fire signs are really good at pivoting their plans and switching and doing something different. So they typically tend to have a pretty positive and optimistic outlook on things. They are also the consummate explorers. Sagittarians love to be outside. They love exploring the natural world around them. But that also extends to other things. They love to travel places oftentimes. Sagittarius energy loves to explore new cultures, whether that's visiting a place or whether that's maybe through trying new foods, meeting new people and just being introduced to anything that kind of expands their worldview and their mind. It's also something that can happen, through a book. Sometimes Sages are reading really interesting books or listening to interesting podcasts because it's just, they love to learn, really. And, Sages are great too because I feel like there's really nothing that a Sagittarius won't try at least once. So oftentimes they can sometimes be our daredevil friends, or the friends who are like, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if you should do that. And they're like, it's fine. And as I mentioned before, Sagittarius energy is also connected to philosophy and higher learning, this idea of faith and belief. I think first and foremost that manifests as faith in oneself. But then I also think Sagittarius energy kind of ranges pretty widely. I think sometimes we can find people whose belief manifests in a religious sense and they can be pretty devout in that way, or even on the spiritual, maybe less religious but more spiritual tilts of things. You can find people who are very devoted to their spiritual practice and kind of the philosophy behind their spiritual practice. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Sages can also be like these great debaters who are kind of like shaking things up with the things that they say, and maybe they're being a little contrary or disagreeing or challenging people's preconceived notions or beliefs, etc. And they can do really well in that role too, because Sagittarians can be pretty blunt. And at the end of the day, it's like Sag energy yearns to be free. They love this idea that life is like one great game of chance, and Sagittarius energy is totally willing to spin the wheel and see what happens, which is really exciting. So if you know anyone with heavy Sagittarius energy in their personal astrology chart, some of those characteristics and qualities may definitely resonate with you. When Sag energy is out of balance, we always talk about, every sign we can present the low road or the high road. And so those things I just mentioned, those are all the wonderful, beautiful gifts of Sag energy. When it's not operating at its highest, Sagittarians need to watch out for believing that they're always right. They do. I've seen a lot of funny memes about this on Instagram lately. They do a lot of research. They do explore and try to understand things. But I think also they can fall into the trap of thinking like that they're the only person who's done the research, and that's not necessarily always true. Sag, it does them good to step back and realize that oftentimes there are valid points to multiple arguments. The second thing to watch out for is if Sag presents in a way that people are religiously or spiritually inclined, just kind of making sure that energy doesn't become overly zealous. It is wonderful to have a disciplined practice, to have a belief or faith in something outside oneself, but just also recognizing that, those who don't ascribe to your same religion or to your same spiritual belief, that's okay. The way that Sag chooses to live is not the only valid way to live. And then lastly, for Sag, just watching out for this desire for freedom. As we talked about before, they love to be free and do things their way and be these like awesome adventurous explorers in different senses of the word. And just watching out for that feeling of like, or just realizing too that like freedom is also a state of mind. It's something that happens internally, and knowing that coming back into that place mentally is always available. So now, even if you don't have Sagittarius energy in your chart, we're all in Sagittarius season from now through December 21st. So what should we be doing with that energy? First and foremost is watch something or give yourself an experience that is going to make you laugh your ass off, because we talked about Sagittarius being all about the fun and the merriment and the laughter and the joy in life. So whether that is, spending time playing with your kids because they do just like the craziest, funniest stuff that makes you laugh, spending time with friends who make you laugh, streaming something on the TV, maybe from your favorite comedian, like this is an awesome time to bring laughter and joy back into your life. It's definitely no surprise that the bulk of the holiday season, we have Thanksgiving, we have Hanukkah, we have Christmas, we have Christmas is not exactly in Sag season, but it's the lead up to it is all Sagittarius season. So it's just really no surprise that this is the time that we are celebrating life and all that it has to offer. Second thing you can do during Sagittarius season, it's an awesome time to enroll in a course or, pick up a new book that you've been meaning to rent from the library, or a podcast that you've been meaning to download and listen to. Like, it's a great time to expand your mental horizons through anything that appeals to you, really, whether it's a course, a workshop, a book, but now's the time to go for it. Third thing would be honest conversations. So we talked about how Sagittarius, they are about telling the truth. And we know sometimes our Sag friends can be a little bit blunt, but the beauty of that is that there's no mixed messaging. Like, it's a good time for just getting things all out onto the table and just being really honest and authentic in those conversations that you have, whether that's with yourself or with the people around you. And the fourth thing that is great to do during Sagittarius season is get outside. I know for some of us, the temperatures are dropping. Some places have already seen snow. It doesn't matter. Dress appropriately, bundle yourself up. Sagittarius energy is happiest when it is outside and allowed to kind of roam around. So whether that's walking, running, snowshoeing, skiing, whatever it is that you can do in your local area to spend time outside, get as much of that as you can over these next 3.5 weeks. Now, moving on, we always talk about the healing modalities that we can call upon that align with the energy of the season that we're in. So first, we're going to talk about herbs that we can be taking right now. Of course, knowing that there are some caveats and you have to investigate further if you are on medications, etc., before you start taking herbs. But all the herbs that I suggest or offer during this season have to do with liver and cleansing the liver, because that part of the body is connected to Sagittarius. And we know since Sages are so fun and they do tend to go a little overboard sometimes, so it's a lot of like eating and drinking and enjoyment. So to help the liver come back into balance during holiday season It's great to, you can drink burdock tea. Yellow dock is another good one. Milk thistle is a great traditional liver cleanser. Also, dandelion's great. Glutathione is another thing that can be helpful for, all body and liver detoxification. So all of those herbs would be great ones to focus on if you are an herb person this season. Thinking about crystals or stones that I would recommend, the first one is malachite. Malachite is a good stone for travel protection. So if you are doing any type of travel over the next 3.5 weeks, that's a good one. And it's also great for protecting against accidents, because Sagittarians are, brave and courageous and not afraid to try things, even if they might be like a little scary or dangerous. So malachite can also help to prevent against any little accidents that may happen. The second crystal is citrine, which citrine is great for so many things. It actually connects to the second chakra. It's great for the flow of creativity and just opening up your own personal life force. And I always think of Sagittarius energy as having a lot of life force behind it. It's also great for bringing in more optimism because we know Sag is such a joyful, optimistic sign. And then lastly, the stone peridot, which again connects these ideas of joy, happiness, ease, just kind of like an overall good feeling. Peridot is great for that. So if you're thinking of working with stones, I would definitely try to rotate one or more of those three into the mix over the next couple weeks. In terms of, yogic practices, I would say just have fun with it. Maybe it's a time, twofold. It could be a time to be a little more disciplined. So making sure that you're getting onto your mat maybe 2 to 3 times a week, where in the last month and a half, maybe it was like once a week, not every week. So on the one hand, coming back to your practice, but on the other hand, make it fun. So whatever that means for you, I would definitely encourage, if you're someone who prefers to practice with music, make a really fun playlist, something that'll make you smile as you're going through the class. That can be great. Excuse me. And then also working with hip openers during Sagittarius season is really important as well. So there's so many: hip opening and downward facing dog and goddess pose and child's pose, and it's endless. You can Google hip opening yoga poses if you want to learn a little bit more about which ones could be great for this season. And lastly, we get to the most important part of this talk, which is looking at the astrology that's happening in this space from November 22nd through December 21st. And I'm telling you, it is a supercharged astrological season right now because it is eclipse season now. And if you're not familiar, eclipses happen at 2 different times of the year. That time of year is always rotating depending on a couple factors. But right now, all of our eclipses are happening either in the sign of Gemini or in the sign of Sagittarius, depending on if it's a full moon or a new moon. So coming up on November 30th, which is Monday, we are going to have a partial lunar eclipse, which is also a full moon. It's going to fall at 8 degrees of the sign of Gemini. So if you know where 8 degrees of Gemini is in your personal chart, that would be something great to look at, because if you know what house of the chart an eclipse or a full moon or something falls in, it gives you even more information about how this can play out for you on a more personal level. So 8 degrees of Gemini for this partial lunar eclipse / full moon that's coming on Monday, November 30th. And we talk about full moons are their culminations, their celebrations, they're releasing. But what's cool about eclipse energy is that instead of just affecting us, for the next week or two after they happen, eclipses tend to have about a 6-month period during which that energy unfolds and plays out in our lives. So what happens now at this partial lunar eclipse on November 30th, when we get to Gemini season, very end of May into June of next year, we might see some of these themes coming back around. So, Gemini is a sign that is highly versatile and flexible. So with this full moon / lunar eclipse, it's going to be really important for us to focus on letting go of anything that blocks us from being flexible, being able to move with the flow of life. so often, and I'm totally guilty of this, we want to control every outcome because we want things to happen just a very certain way. And when we can learn to step back and recognize that, the universe or God or, whatever higher something outside yourself that you believe in, that will bring things into your life when they need to happen for your soul to grow and evolve and to get the things that ultimately fuel you and will help you to lead the life that you desire. So when we start to let go of control a little bit and just flow with what's happening here, we get more into that Gemini type of energy. It's going to be really good over the next 3 weeks. It's about letting go of old thought patterns. Gemini is very much about the mind. Gemini is about staying open, staying curious. It's about not being afraid to let go of what we thought before when new information is introduced. So it's definitely very much stepping out of this Sagittarian idea of this is what I believe and into this curious, open, flexible state of, well, this is what I believe, but now I'm hearing about this and my thoughts are changing, and that's okay. It's okay to change. That's another lesson that Gemini can teach us. Also, there's a lot going on at this full moon / lunar eclipse with Uranus and Venus and making some wonky aspects to the sun and the moon. So basically, I'm already feeling it. I don't know if you guys are, but this can be a lot of tension and anxiety that will feel like leading up to November 30th and even maybe in the couple days after. And because Venus is involved, this could affect our personal relationships, whether that's with family, close friends, or a more intimate partner. So it's going to be really important that we use all the tools that we have. So whether if you're a dancer, you should be dancing. If you're a runner, you should be running. If you're into yoga or breath work or meditation, like really settling into your practices every day from now through probably December 1st or 2nd is going to help you to sit with and move through that energy of feeling tension, feeling anxiety, having questions, maybe not knowing where you stand with something. Maybe a little shakeup happens in a relationship and you're not sure how to navigate that. The answers will come if we slow down and quiet our minds and stay connected to our practices. The next interesting piece of this is that Saturn and Jupiter are both moving into Aquarius starting on December 21st. So it's really the very end of Sagittarius season, but I wanted to touch on it because it is important. Jupiter only visits a sign about every 13 years. Saturn visits a sign about every 28, 29 years. So it's been a while since they've been in Aquarius. And I'll talk more about this in a later video, but just keep in mind that we're going to start to see a shift from a focus on, what we've had the last couple years, focus on government and structure and corporations and authority. And we're going to be shifting more into this energy of collective humanity, of a focus on technology and innovation and problem solving, authenticity, doing things differently and outside the box, like radical new ideas. All of those concepts connect with Aquarian energy. And as these two outer planets both shift into that sign, we're going to see more of that energy coming in. And it's interesting, that will also be, this next 2 years will be like a preview of what will happen when Pluto moves into Aquarius, I think around 2024, and it'll stay there for like 20 years. And so what we see now is kind of a preview for what will happen over that chunk of time, which is kind of cool. And very lastly, a little bit later in Sag season, we are going to have a solar eclipse, which is also a new moon. We're going to have that in the sign of Sagittarius on December 14th, and it's going to be at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. So once again, check your personal chart, see where that falls for you for a little bit more information. But generally speaking, this solar eclipse, can definitely be about the closing out of one cycle and the opening of a new cycle. And because the sun and moon and Mercury are all going to be together at this time, it's kind of this idea of like a realization that we might need to tweak or challenge or adjust some of our beliefs, whether that's our beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the way that life works, beliefs that we have about relationships, or just like belief systems in general, you know, largely speaking, it definitely, I think, will be a period of mental readjustment. Now, I think for some people that might be more stark than others. Some people might not feel it that strongly, depending on what's going on in your own chart. But I think it'll be interesting when we look at the collective as well. This solar eclipse makes a trine to the planet Mars, which is also in a fire sign. We have a lot of fire going on at this eclipse on the 14th. So I think it means, you know, we have the energy and initiative to make the changes that we want to make. You know, it might be difficult. We've got some stuff happening to Mercury that it might not feel quite clear how we need to tweak or adjust our beliefs and our belief systems. But I think if we commit ourselves mentally to that work, to staying open to that work, then the path just reveals itself. So yes, a very fiery solar eclipse, which is fire is all the energy of like, get up, go, do, move now. You know, it's definitely not a time to sit back and wait. It's a time to really engage with life. Of course, solar eclipses being a new moon, it's like a supercharged time to set a new intention as well. And the intentions that you set here around December 14th can also, as I mentioned with the lunar eclipse, they can take about a full 6 months to really play out and to manifest themselves. So setting some long range intentions is also a really great thing to do at this time. So that was a lot of information, but hopefully you guys were able to stick with me through that. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to me through Instagram. My handle is @the_astro_yogi. You can also reach out to me via email and text. But thank you guys so much for being here. Hope you have a great Sag season.